Hello, my name is Lauren, and I am the Director of Healthcare for doForms. Thank you so much for joining me on today's video, where I'm going to show you how easy it is for you to build a HIPAA-compliant form using our doForms for Healthcare solution. The doForms for Healthcare solution is available with our advanced security model of doForms. So you'll be able to see today some of the security features we have built right into our core platform so that you can build HIPAA-compliant forms that are suitable for any healthcare business. So to get started, the first thing I'm going to do is go to the Form Builder section of our online portal. All you do is sign in and you quickly go to this Build Form section, and it'll open up our Form Designer. Now, this is a really cool tool that allows you to build a form, and as you do it, you can actually preview what your form is going to look like on any type of device. So with doForms, you're building a form application that can work on smartphones, so it'll support a BYOD deployment environment, as well as any sort of tablet, whether it be Android or iOS. So by building this form one time, you now have a data collection tool that can be used on a myriad of devices. So with that being said, let's get started, and I'm going to build sort of a sample form for us today. It'll be a home health aid caregiver checklist. So as I'm doing this, I hope you'll see all of the different tools we have that make it really easy for you to replicate your existing paper form and get it ready for digital capture using tablet, smartphones, or our online web client. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give this form a name. So to do that, I like to use the Label tab here. So I'm going to call this a Home Health Aid Time and Activity Checklist. I'm going to center this just so it'll be centered when I open up the form. And then I think it might be nice if I put our company logo in the form as well. So I'm just going to upload a little logo I have here, and I'm also going to justify that as well. So I'm going to hit preview, and you'll see I've already started building my form. Again, I'm going to center this image because I think that'll look a little nicer. And boom, I have already started building right here. Now, on this form, I may also want to have my company address. So I'm just going to type in a sample address here. And I'm also going to center this. So you can see as I'm building this, I'm adding more information here. So I now have a label of the form as well as my company address or any other contact information I'd want to put in. So now I'm going to really get into some of our advanced security features that make this form HIPAA compliant. So of course, the first thing that you want to do is probably ask for the patient's name. So who is being treated or provided care. So to do this, I'm actually going to pull in a layout grid because I'm going to ask two questions here. I am going to ask for the patient's name. And this, of course, is something we call PHI, or Protected Health Information. So PHI, we really want to make sure that it's protected while it's captured on the device and in transit and stored in our portal. This is a requirement of HIPAA, and we've really made it as simple as checking this box. So by checking the encrypt field box, this field has now become encrypted, which means that no one with unauthorized access rights can view this data. So it's pretty nifty. Now I'll also put in here maybe a client ID or a patient ID. A lot of organizations, of course, assign unique identifiers to each of their patients. So I'm going to put that there and also encrypt this field. So I'm going to preview this, and you can see I've now really started building a form. So I have patient's name and patient's ID right there. I'm actually going to delete this hint here, and you can see how that adjusts the layout grid. So now it becomes a little bit smaller because there's no hint. So the next thing that's commonly asked on a lot of these forms is to kind of capture the time that the shift started and the time the shift ended. So to do that, I'm going to bring in another layout grid. And a layout grid is just a way for you to organize different questions so that you can capture maybe 3 fields in one line. So a good idea to illustrate this would be for me to drag in a date field. So I'm going to call this date. And again, you have the selection to choose between the today button or a little calendar button. I prefer the calendar button, so I'm going to choose that for today. And then I'm also going to drag in a time shift started. And I'm going to make this a timestamp, and I'm going to make it a clock. I don't really care about seconds, and I also just need 1 minute intervals. And I'm actually going to copy this field, and I'm going to call this field time shift ended. So I've now put 3 questions in my layout grid, and you'll see that my layout grid by default starts with 2 columns. So I need to change that. And then I also want to adjust the column width because time shift started and time shift ended should probably take up a bit more space than date. So let's change this and make this a little more even. So I'm going to hit preview. Perfect. I like the way that looks a lot better. So you can see now I can capture the date. I can capture the time a shift started. And so let's say it like that, and the time the shift ended. So let's do that. So just like that, I've now created a form that captures the patient's name, the date of a shift, and the time that the shift began and ended. Now, it could be important for future reporting for you to automatically calculate the length of this shift. For a lot of customers, we help them create customized payroll reports. And these are automated reports that they receive on a daily basis or once a week using our report builder. We'll definitely cover that in a future video, but it's important to really make sure that when you're building your form that you're capturing those elements that you might want to report on in the future. So I'm actually going to grab a calculation widget here, which is found under an action, your action section. And it is going to be a date time calculation. And I don't worry about seconds, so I'm going to select this view setting. And I am going to calculate the time shift ended minus the time shift started. And then I'm also going to hide this because for mobile users, they don't want to see it. This is really just for reporting. So this is a hidden field in the form, which will just be used for data reports in the future. I'm actually going to unhide it so you can see how it works. Here we go. I'm going to enter in the date. Let's do a 1-hour shift. And you can see it automatically calculates that just by me entering in those fields. So now I'm going to hide it, and preview will show me what it would look like on the mobile device. So it's not actually there on the mobile form, but that data is being captured, which is really important for future reporting purposes. So far we've shown you how to create encrypted fields. So for patient's name and patient's ID, anything that is personal to that patient should be encrypted. So their address, their phone number, perhaps their social security number. You want to make sure that when you're capturing these fields on the form, you're always using our encrypt field function there. We've shown you how to enter in the time a shift started and the time shifts ended. How to kind of customize layout grids and to add a hidden field into your form. So that's a great starting point. But now let's show you some of the other features we have. In healthcare, sometimes these forms can be quite large, multiple pages. So we've made it very easy for you to make multi-page forms. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag in our page widget. And I'm going to call this page the checklist. So we're going to have a first page where we'll enter in the patient name and the start of the shift. And then we're going to have a next page, which is going to take us to our checklist. So I'm going to enter in an action button here that is going to say next. And I'm going to call this next page. And I'm going to ask it to jump to a page. And the page I want it to go to is checklist. So you can see I've now added a page to my form and a next button that'll take me to the next page. So now the next part of this form is actually a checklist. So what did the care aide do during this visit with the client? So I'm going to do two little checklist sections here. One is going to be for personal care, so I'm going to give that a header. And the other is going to be for nutrition. I could go on and show you all the different types of checklists, but we'll just do these two sections for today's video. So personal care, I'm going to actually use a select multiple box here because I might be able to do several types of care at a visit. So I don't want to use a choose one widget, which would only allow me to select one option. I actually want to create a checklist. So personal care provided is what I will call this. And I can add a hint here. Please select all that apply. And then I can add my answers. So let's say, did we assist with bathing, tub, or shower? Did we hair care, shampoo? These are just some very common home health aid tasks, so I'm just going to add them here. Oral hygiene and assist with dressing. So just like that, I have now created a second page as well as a checklist. So I'll show you what this looks like now. So now we have our first page. I can hit the next button. And now I have my checklist where I can check what care was provided during this shift. Now, this is great. However, I have noticed with a lot of healthcare forms, you seem to have duplicative information that needs to be entered in multiple pages of the form, such as patient name. So what we've done here is we've actually enabled the calculation field to pull information on from the first page. So I'm going to type in a calculation field here, and I'm going to call this patient name calculation. I'm going to choose a text field, and I am going to make it equal to patient's name at the beginning of the form. So now you can see what happens. I enter in patient's name, and when I hit the next button, it automatically carries over to the next portion of my form. So you can do this for any information that you capture, whether it be their address, their phone number, their ID, anything that you want to carry on to future pages of the form. You can use our text calculation field to easily achieve that. So I've done my personal care checklist, and now let's do another checklist for nutrition. So we'll say nutrition care provided. And again, I will do my hint. And now I am going to, let's say, meal preparation, assist with feeding, encourage fluid intake, and record diet intake. So these are just some very common home health aid checklists. So for nutrition, for example, we want to make sure that we're marking everything we're doing here. So all the services that were provided for the patient. And with this, you'll see that the final option, record diet intake, that might require maybe some more information where you want the aide to actually write down, what the client or patient ate during that visit. So for that, we want to add in another text box and let's say daily diet notes. And we're actually going to make this a conditional field that will only show up if record diet intake is selected. So I'm going to hit the only display this question if nutrition care provided is equal to record diet intake. So this means that if I go to the second page of my form and I hit record diet intake, now that question appears. So this really shows you how you can make these forms smart so that you can actually make paperwork a lot more efficient when you're in the field, because you're only really having to fill out the sections of the form that you require. So you'll see if I check these other options, that field doesn't appear. However, if I do, it'll show up right there. So again, a very simple way to use a checklist to build logic into your forms. So the final piece of this form is going to be a signature. So I want to record a signature both from the client as well as the caregiver. So to do this, I am actually going to drag in another layout grid just to organize things nicely. And I'm going to make this a no caption layout grid just so I can show you what that looks like. I'm going to drag a label into this form and I'm going to call this client patient signature. And then I'm going to drag in a signature field. So now, and again, this will be client signature. So now I have a field where I can get the client to sign. And I'm just going to duplicate it so that I can do caregiver signature. So if I preview this, you'll see now that I can get the client signature as well as the caregiver signature. Now for future reporting as well, it may be important for you to know if the client did sign this document for compliance reasons. So quickly, I'll show you how you can use a choose one. And I'm going to make this question, is client signature present? And the options will be yes or no. And again, I'm going to make this a hidden field in the future, but first I'll show you how the logic works. And I am going to say, if the answer to the question client signature is empty, then the answer is going to be no. So that means there's no signature present. Then I will add a else if. So else if the answer to client signature is not empty, then yes. So that means if a signature is in this field, then this answer should be yes. So again, this is just logic in your form that will eventually hide, but it'll help you if you're ever creating a report where you want to know, is there a signature present in this field? So you can see as I sign it, this switches to yes. So it's a very, very useful tool that you can put in for your reporting. So I'm actually going to hide this. And I'm almost done with this form. So I have a signature. I know if someone has signed or not. And now the final piece of this is I am going to hit a submit form button. And this is going to save and send this form. And that's it. That's the final step of my form. So now I can review it one more time using preview. I think that looks great. And I have my submit form button. So now I'm going to publish this form. So let's call this a aid checklist. Let's say I like that. That can be the name for it. And I want to use a custom icon maybe. I'm going to save this. And then I can also define my record name. So this is important if you want to see and organize your forms based on the date created in the patient's name. I hit save. And just like that, I have created a form that is now available for me to complete on any device. So I've now opened up my tablet app and you can see aid checklist is now available. So I'm just going to open it up. It'll load on the tablet. You can see it looks a lot like it did in the preview. So I'll just enter in a sample name, the sample ID, capture the date, the time a shift starts. I can hit the next button. You can see it carried over my name. I can do my checklist. I can get signatures for both the client and the caregiver, and I can submit my form. So now the form is submitted, and it's available to view in our online portal. So I just quickly switch back over to the portal so you can see where I go to view data. So I'm going to actually just go to my main project here. I am going to select the aid checklist, which is the form I just built, and I am going to go to view my data. So here's that form that I just submitted, and I can open it up as a PDF very quickly. So you can see I have all that information from the form captured here as a PDF document. And from there, I can also take this data and integrate it with backend systems, export this data to Excel, and of course, create really nifty reports that can help streamline your payroll processing every week. So, these topics will be covered in future videos, but I really thank you for taking the time to join us on how to build your first HIPAA-compliant form. So thank you, everyone. Again, my name is Lauren, and to learn more, I would encourage you to go to doForms.com and sign up for a free trial. It's really easy to get started.